San Francisco to the foothills in Grass Valley, but it was like, woo, this is like luxury having someone move us, It was
Yeah.
like wild. Yeah. But all
Makes
the
it
other, well, I'm counting this as, a 33rd move, but the rest were quite a few of them were, well, a number of them when I was a kid were moving with my parents. So, but
right.
but this will be 33rd from birth.
Yeah,
If
I moved a lot
a
when I
month
was a kid
or more,
too.
if you count anything a month or more in the same place.
Oh man, yeah, no, I moved a lot when I was a kid too. So,
Yeah.
but once I got adulted, like I've lived in this house, it'll be 25 years.
Wow. That's a
We
good
moved
stretch.
here to Pueblo in 2000.
Yeah.
Um, but we were um, again, it was a corporate move, so
Hmm.
it was just you show up and they show up and they come in and pack your stuff and put it in you get to the other house and they unpack it and I mean it's like wow. I can't even imagine moving any other way now. So
Wow. I I can hardly remember the other way.
oh my God.
Since that was, let's see, what about 41 years ago?
Yeah,
Time flies.
time flies.
Yeah.
All right, so good morning, everybody. Our tales of movement upon the planet from one location to another, and um, it's very interesting because I think we're reading about the story of Helen Schuckman, Absence from Felicity, the story of Helen Schuckman, and the Scribing of A Course in Miracles by Dr. Kenneth Wapnick, PhD. And here's a woman, Helen Schuckman, who probably only moved once from her family apartment to her husband's apartment. um, but that was not such a so much happening of moving back in those days. So so let's see. I'm okay. I know you've got us marked. Um,
I have us on the middle, a little below the middle of page 442 in chapter 16 of Absence from Felicity, the story of Helen Schuckman and her scribing of A Course in Miracles by Kenneth Wapnick, PhD. I always flip over to cover to read that real fast. And where I have us is the circle of the quote unknowing unquote. Should I pick up from there?
yes, please.
Okay. So I will start that sentence again. Ken's commentary. The circle of the quote unknowing unquote extended to my
USB
parents.
mode.
Oops, what was that?
Sorry, I just turned on my speaker.
Oh, okay. I just heard this automated voice.
USB mode.
What? Okay. Um, okay. The circle of the quote unknowing unquote extended to my parents as well, at least at first. Um, Maybe we should back up a paragraph.
That's what I was thinking. That's why I was
Get the context of what the unknowing is. Okay.
yours.
Um, so I'll back up a paragraph. I have never seen Helen more flustered. Let me back up two paragraphs. It's not too much. Okay. A humor. So this is now at the bottom of page 441 in the print version I have of Absence from Felicity. A humorous, though at the time highly embarrassing incident for Helen occurred when we were in Israel. A couple whom Helen and Louis had been friendly with for many years had moved to Jerusalem several years earlier, and they kept in touch through occasional letters. The last thing in the world Helen wanted was to meet them, however, and so she never notified them of our visit. How could she possibly explain what we all were all doing there? We had even joked about this possibility since Helen had expressed her guilt over not informing them of our trip. And then, sure enough, one evening as we were walking into a restaurant near the King David Hotel, we bumped right into them. I have never seen Helen more flustered, she who was almost always so perfectly composed in public. She did not know what to say as her friends gently reprimanded her for not telling them of the trip. Helen sputtered out something about this being a kind of top secret enterprise, implying a connection to government intelligence agencies. Thus, she was not free to reveal the nature of the trip, but would be able to talk more at a later time. The couple had an appointment, and so, fortunately for Helen, could not stay any longer. One of the funniest moments of my life then followed. We all sat down for dinner, and then Bill and I began to kid Helen about not telling her friends the truth. And so we were told the true story about why we were and so we told the true story about why we were in Israel, beginning with Helen's 1965 visions and experiences, the scribing of the course, and continuing on through the cave episode. The contrast between all that we said, which was absolutely true, and the way we knew it would sound to a quote normal person, quote unquote normal person, which included Helen's circle of personal and professional acquaintances, was uproariously funny. Well, that was worth rereading. So now that this will now that we have the context for this next paragraph. This circle of the quote unknowing unquote extended to my parents as well, at least at first. Surprisingly, since they were so different, Helen and my mother developed a reasonably close friendship, at least from my mother's point of view. My mother felt a real connection with Helen, and almost from their first meeting, a dinner at my parents' apartment, with Louis and Bill also present, respected and trusted Helen. Helen liked my mother, and feeling her pain, attempted to be of help to her. The fact that she was my mother was certainly a major factor as well. As Helen's ego would reason, being close to my mother was simply another way of keeping close to me. And so my two mothers would, meaning Helen being one of them, would have occasional lunches together. And as mentioned previously, Helen and Louis later on became regulars at our family's annual Passover setters. But of course, Helen never said anything about A Course in Miracles, and certainly not its scribing. At this point in their relationship, the course was not yet published, and all that my parents knew was that I was deeply involved in this spiritual and psychological book, which Helen and Bill had written, in quotes. As I have already indicated, Helen had asked me never to speak of the true nature of the course unless she felt absolutely comfortable with the circumstances. But as the months went by and my parents asked the usual questions about what I was doing, and more specifically about this book, it became increasingly difficult for me to keep the conversation general. I spoke to Helen about this and explained how the situation was beginning to sound somewhat strange and mysterious, as if there was something I was trying to hide, a circumstance I knew Helen would not want in terms of her relationship with my mother, not to mention my own. She therefore agreed that it would be best to tell my mother the story, and on my urging, that she was be the one to tell it. The big day finally came, and Helen was prepared to tell my mother at a lunch they were going to have together in Manhattan. I was planning on seeing my parents in Brooklyn that evening, and so I waited for Helen to return from the luncheon to find out how it went before I traveled to Brooklyn. When we spoke, Helen told me with great embarrassment that she just could not say anything to my mother. Sounds like a typical sitcom plot, doesn't it? I mean, it's like, okay, I finally got up the nerve to say something and then didn't, right? Okay.
Yeah, it does sound like that. And but as I'm listening, I'm thinking, well, I'm sure that if because the reason that Helen was feeling uncomfortable was because she wasn't being guided to say anything. If Jesus said, tell, Ken's mom about this, then I think she would be able to do it. But, just
Mhm.
for her to make the decision was too much for her, I think. Anyway, go
Yeah.
ahead. Continue.
Okay. Okay. Where was I? Okay. Um, I'll back up a sentence. When we spoke, Helen told me with great embarrassment that she just could not say anything to my mother. The words would not come out. The discrepancy between her public persona as a normal psychologist and her hidden life as a scribe for Jesus. There's a t-shirt slogan, "Scribe for Jesus." Huh? Wouldn't that be funny if Helen wore that to her day job? Huh? Was simply too great for her to bridge, and so she said nothing. She agreed that at this point I should tell my parents myself. She agreed. Doesn't say they agreed. The split in her mind was not anything Helen was able to undo. The guilty secret for her remained just that. That's a funny phrase when you think about how what A Course in Miracles does for all of us is it exposes the secret guilt that we all have for believing that we separated from our Creator, and by reflection, by the part of our mind we call Holy Spirit or Jesus or the Christ mind, and that's the one thing that every ego wants to keep a secret, so that to maintain the guilt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll just finish this next paragraph. While Helen was extremely protective of A Course in Miracles during the period preceding its publication and generally wished that Bill and I not share it with anyone, she did at times make exceptions if she felt the person would be accepting of it. Thus, a number of my friends were, quote, allowed, unquote, to see the manuscript, even though a few of them had already been exposed to many of its ideas, albeit in modified form. And even after its publication, when Helen herself was able to talk to course students about the material, she hardly discussed Jesus unless she felt that these students also shared a relationship with him. To practically all who knew her then, Helen was a brilliant research psychologist, witty conversationalist, a friend eager to be of professional help to those in distress, a woman immaculate in appearance and prone to excessive shopping, with a weakness for jewelry and shoes. I'm laughing, I'm giggling because there's a lady in a Zoom class that I attend who I kind of fits that description in a lot of ways, and both culturally and in appearance. And a somewhat neurotic person preoccupied with sickness and the threat of inclement weather, but hardly one whose internal life centered on religious concerns that directly involved Jesus. A well-kept secret indeed.
Wow. I guess we could all resemble that, right?
Yeah, yeah, we resemble that remark, huh?
Because yeah,
Exactly,
how
exactly.
many times? Yeah,
Yep.
I'm not running around telling people about Jesus and of Course in Miracles.
Yeah, yeah. That I mean, that's usually some, cards we keep close to our chest kind of thing. I think we've learned over the years as seasoned course students that, it's like we have to kind of be moderately sure that people have expressed some kind of interest rather than running around erring on the side of proselytizing and then souring people on something that they might otherwise, gradually have an interest in.
Yeah,
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 exactly.
yeah.
Although I think that's really not up to me either.
No, really, it really isn't. It really isn't. Yeah, but I just have found over the years that having gone the other way
Yeah,
and haven't seen it backfire, it's like, okay. I mean, like for example, on my Facebook page, I, my personal page, Facebook page, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, I post something about the course.
yeah.
But for the most part, it's, the other 99 point whatever percent is just usual kind of normal cultural everyday stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe some stuff about the other books I've written and things, but yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So I think we can, like you said, we can all relate because there's a part of our mind that totally gets the course, and then the ego part of our mind, like Helen is, actually embarrassed by and ashamed of our relationship with the Jesus in our mind, the Holy Spirit uh, correction, the Christ mind, if you will, that really is our real identity, because we're not completely accepting of it. And if we were completely accepting of it, we would always know the right thing to say and do, and would never be, stomping on anyone's pet belief systems or uh, mechanisms for hiding from the truth in their mind.
Well, yeah. I mean, if I think it really has to do with where it's coming from, and
Hmm.
and how easy it is to recognize when the ego is in charge.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I want to tell you about this.
I've got an
So,
outcome and an expectation in mind. Yeah.
you're going to really like this. We're gonna have a great time about this. Or, whatever. Whenever the ego is involved, it is not working. But if spontaneously, without any sort of prompting or thought, it comes to you to say something to somebody, um, and you have a choice. Is this something that's going to be helpful, or is this something that is inspired, or is this the ego just trying to assert its will here? And you have to
Yeah.
think about those things because if we don't think about what we're thinking and saying, uh, then we're not paying attention
Yeah.
to, and it's the only thing that really, it's the cost. If you want to see the cost of the course, it's to pay attention. That's all it costs. Anyhow, so yeah, and uh, yeah, I would never look at someone like Helen. In fact, that's what we were just seeing. John, was it? Yeah, John Mundy, when he first met Helen, and
Hmm.
he was maybe he was writing articles or a book or something about parapsychology and psychology and etc.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Mysticism and that sort of thing. Yep.
yeah, mysticism, yeah. And
Yep.
they told him, Helen had written, this course. And
Right.
so he thought, oh, how sweet, this little lady has written a self-help book.
Oh, wow. Talk about classic misunderstatement. Huh?
I'm like, oh my God, John, I can't believe, but that's exactly what he thought. This she's written a self-help book, and that must be, I'm sure it's quite good or whatever. But then when he actually saw the course, it was a different story.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I'm giggling with Robert Dino James Sears. Thank you for putting one of my favorite little puns in the chat. My karma ran over your dogma.
yeah,
That's I think I now I may not be sure who to truly attribute that to, but I first heard that from a friend named Steve Behrman who goes by Swami Byanananda, who has lots of great metaphysical wordplay in his repertoire and his stand-up shtick. Yeah, I agree. I also put in the chat something I just posted on my acimblog.com Facebook page. Uh, a very short video of Bob Scutch singing a little ditty. It's less than a minute, and so I just put fond memories of Bob Scutch, who would have turned 100 today. So
well,
he
let's
he
just
just passed a
conclude.
few months ago. One of the original folks that helped put FIP together, Foundation for Inner Peace, along with his then wife, Judy Scutch. But long after Judy and Bob were no longer a marital couple, they worked together for many years, and he outlived Judy by a few years now. But yeah, Bob was basically a stalwart supporter of the course, and he also for I think for the longest time he was still shipping books, schlepping books and things to course related materials to the post office every day, and taking care of orders and doing all that kind of answering the phones. And I remember another fellow course student um, called years ago, and Bob answered the phone when they had the phone. And anyway, so but
That's
I got
funny.
to meet him on a few occasions when I was in California for a year, and I was helping work on the FIP website. It was I had a lot of help with that website, of course, but uh, anyway, I'm rambling a bit, but I just wanted to kind of make a
Well,
little tip of the hat to Bob Scutch, who was very quiet, but when he spoke, it was always funny and humorous and and engaging, and inclusive, congenial, all that kind of stuff. And you could tell that he he practiced the course along with all the other folks at FIP that really wanted to not only make it work for the world but for themselves as well. So thanks.
I love it. I'm going to play that right now.
Okay.
How am I doing? Hey, hey. Tweet, 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 twa, twa. How am I doing? Hey, hey. Me, oh, baby, oh, Shaw. I ain't got a gal and she's so tall. Sleeps in the kitchen with her feet in the hall. How am I doing? Hey, hey. Tweet, 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 twa, twa.
That's so sweet.
Isn't that fun?
Oh my God. That
Yeah, I
is
just
so
read across.
sweet.
I post, birthdays of people that are involved in the course, and all these friends and family and all kinds of stuff on my calendar, and that came up this morning. So I thought, I'll just check and see. And sure enough, yeah, he would have been 100 today, but
I
tip of the
love
hat to
it.
Bob. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That had to
Bobo.
have been something to be married to Judy. What an amazing woman. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'd be glad to read a biography of her someday. I know.
Actually, she and Tam Morgan, her daughter, co-wrote a biography, and it's quite good. It's
Yeah,
called Double Vision.
Double
Um,
Vision. I got that, and the font is so small I can't read it.
oh, well,
So,
shoot.
but I can get a magnifier. So,
Magnifier might help. Yeah, it's a fun read. It's not pithy and substantive as the other three biographies about Bill and Helen and Ken's own autobiography, which we're I presume still set to read when we're done with this one.
absolutely.
But um, it's still a great read, and you can tell that Tam and Judy's love for each other, as well as how they work through a lot of challenges. And just as an aside, so what a who's who of the parapsychological world back in that day, and the 60s, 70s, and so on. And I mean, so many names, like, oh, I remember my mom having that person's book, and talking about this person. And but sort of like a celebrity roll call for the metaphysical and parapsychological
Metaphysical.
world of that era, because
Yeah,
because Judy basically hosted all kinds of things like that in her New York apartment. Uh,
that was a
yeah.
booming time back then.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I mean,
and we
Tam
were
was
young.
basically first name basis with Uri Geller and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Who I always thought should have married Reese Witherspoon. But anyway, I thought that would have been a good match, at least in terms of name. Yeah, if she
Uh,
kept her last name at least. But anyway.
and someone said, "Oh, somebody murdered Reese Witherspoon? No, with a knife." Oh,
Yeah, that's good. Uh,
oh, my husband just told me that joke 2 days ago.
yeah. Oh, and Robert put in the chat, holy relationships outlast marriages or divorces. Whew, that's good news, huh?
That is good
That's
news.
great. That's great. And very apropos for, Bob and Judy's relationship. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, they
Do you
were
want to pick up
all
on doubt and inconsistency?
absolutely. All right.
Okay.
So doubt and inconsistency. I had to breathe.
Really?
I forget to do that sometimes. Doubt and inconsistency. Another form in which Helen manifested her ambivalent relationship with Jesus was in experiences of doubt. Doubt, of course, as with anger and anxiety, was simply Helen's defense against the certainty of the love that united her and Jesus and that she knew as reality. I believe that one of my important functions with Helen was to provide her with the steadfast certainty of Jesus's presence that softened the anxiety that came from her defense of doubt. One example illustrated nicely Helen's need for proof that there was a Jesus and that her hearing was not the product of her imagination. I had made arrangements with Helen one Sunday afternoon to come over after my dinner guests left. Shortly before I was to leave, it began to snow, not heavily, but enough to make the New York streets slushy and messy. I left my apartment and was on my way to the elevator when the thought came to me clearly that I should return and put on my rubbers. I knew this was Jesus's idea and not mine, since I hardly ever put on rubbers, and so I understood that this was for Helen's benefit, who always was worrying about me. I thought nothing more about it, put my rubbers on, and walked the short block and a half to Helen's apartment house. As she opened her apartment door for me, she did not so much as even greet me, but immediately looked down at my feet. She seemed almost to be in tears as she thanked me, saying that Jesus had promised her that I would have my rubbers on. The fact that I had indeed worn them was almost as if Jesus had passed a test for Helen. And if he kept his word with my rubbers, then perhaps he could be trusted to keep his word regarding other matters as well. And wow, it was what an interesting thing because we're told throughout the course and Kellen Ken has made it really clear that Jesus doesn't come into the world to
Hmm.
do things,
Yep.
but we do get
So true.
these understandings. And I had a situation that happened one time when I was visiting friends in Boston. And we went over to someplace fancy. I don't know what the hell, some area there that, this one lady lived in. And she said, "Oh, we're going to go to the country club for lunch. We're going to take you to the country club and go have lunch." And I'm like all excited going to this fancy place. And I was getting ready to go, and I was getting, as I normally back in those days would wear blue jeans, just all the time wear blue jeans. But I started to get my blue jeans out of my suitcase, and I got, nope, wear the black pants. Like, I don't want to wear the black pants. This is not a formal occasion. I want to wear the blue jeans. Nope, wear the black pants. I said, okay, fine. And really, honestly, that I was prompted, and it was not, whatever was telling me this was not letting me go until I decided to wear the black pants. And so we went to the country club, and as we were driving up the drive to the country club, the woman turned around to everyone in the car and said, "I hope none of you are wearing denim, because denim is not allowed in the country club." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." Because I would have ruined everybody's time, because they would have had to take me back to the house to change, or, I couldn't have gone into I don't know. But just the insistence that I wear a certain thing didn't, I argued about it, just like Ken argued about wearing his rain boots.
Hmm.
But he gave in, and he gave in, and it was a proof. And that to me was a proof. When I realized, oh, I had been instructed what to wear, it was a
Yeah.
proof to me that, there's something going on here that isn't just my own imagination.
Hmm.
So, all right. So,
And
uh,
it's just a reflection of, I mean, obviously, like you say, it's really important to remember that Jesus or Holy Spirit doesn't get involved in dream repair or helping us make decisions in the world. But the way our mind can translate that is, oh, heard this lyric in a song that reminded me of forgiveness or kindness, or I saw a license plate or a bumper sticker, or whatever it takes, and help Helen's being relieved that that Ken wears galoshes, or whatever. It's like and your denim versus black slacks episodes. Like, well, we can say, well, see, the Holy Spirit, guided me. Well, in a sense, but it's really just the reflection of this choice in the mind to avoid self-incrimination and guilt that then takes the form of a choice that then reflects that um, kindness to oneself, right?
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Well, yeah. And you have to wonder about this stuff, only because I know that, when did I decide which pants to wear? It wasn't the day that I was going to the country club. It was at the very instant of the tiny mad idea, when the entire dream was made up. So this has been since eternity. I was wearing those pants to the country club. It was only in my mind that I thought I had a choice. And how the choice was made was through listening. And uh, and what if I hadn't listened? What if I had, is there a timeline or a scenario where that would have caused that to happen? That, we would have gone and I would have gotten kicked out, or we'd have had to go to McDonald's for lunch, or, whatever, whatever the situation. Um, uh, Honestly, uh, it was already done.
Hmm.
So it was already done. Ken already wore those galoshes. Helen was already relieved. It was already done.
Hmm.
So, but for us, because it's like we're reading a book, and then the chapters are forecasting what's going to happen,
Yeah.
and we just know. And that's why we talk about people with psychic abilities that everyone was so excited about back in those days. A psychic ability really was only knowing that part of the script. It wasn't that there was anything special or different, that you
Right.
could predict
Right.
a future or predict, or whatever. It's because you already know the script.
Well, I
And
mean, if you think about the non-duality of the course, then really what's natural, not normal, but natural, is for us to be all-knowing or omniscient, and because there's nothing that's outside of mind, and we all share the same mind because there's just one of us. So, the, but what the mistake we make is we think that there's specific things to know. And so, because that same mistake, it also means that there could be a thing that is different from me or separate from me, and therefore I could not be completely aware of what that is, and its being and its expression, and everything, involving space and time is a further division and obfuscation and hiding of that, infinite awareness that is completely um, all-encompassing and all-inclusive. And so, what's absurd from the perspective of the eternal truth of what we are is that we could appear to not know everything and not be aware of everything. And
yeah,
so when we have these psychic phenomena, it's like, whoa, look at that. Things seem to be able to be communicated telepathically or psychokinetically, or yeah, the 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 clairaudience, clairsentient, clairvoyance, all those things. Another fellow course student has, I think, written a book on that. But it seems like it's almost absurd that we, thinking it from the perspective of truth, would be not aware of everything. And we've got everything's backwards, just kind of like quantum entanglement. Think, wow, isn't it amazing that we can develop these computers, these quantum computers with think elements called qubits that can become entangled, and no matter where they are in space and time, well, or space anyway, as far as I understand it, which is pretty limited. But we can entangle these qubits, and the state is exactly the same regardless of the distance, instantaneously. If a qubit changes from 1 to 0 or in indeterminate state, it changes instantaneously in the other entangled qubit. We think, wow, isn't that amazing? But if space and time are bogus, then it's like, well, duh, why wouldn't they be entangled? I mean, what's amazing is that we could have things that don't appear to be entangled. That,
exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
but that's where, everything is backwards, upside down, and inside out in this world, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
that's what's so funny is that we think it's so wonderful, but guess what? That's the ego patting itself on the back, saying, "Look at this cool thing I made." And when God's looking at it, if God was able to see it and saying, "Oh, he's playing with the Tinker Toys again."
Put away the sharp-edged toys, yeah, of space and time. It
Uh,
doesn't mean we're not being reprimanded or scolded or humiliated. It's just basically saying how silly for us to use our minds, our truly precious, well, it's really a singular mind, but we've divided it. The Ken goes into the four splits, Ken Wapnick, the four splits, extensively. But because we're so far down the rabbit hole of separation, we think that we pulled off this impossible crime, and so we're astonished when we see things that show interconnectedness and relatedness and sameness and synchronicities, and it's like, whoa, call National Enquirer. It's like I've discovered that there's a relationship between seemingly separate things. That's
oh
staggering.
my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, it is hysterical. It is hysterical. And
But we're so inured to the dream and the lies that we don't even question that should not be the norm.
yeah. Yeah, it's so funny because through this is why when you read the Course with Jesus now, you see him laughing at so many things
Hmm.
because it's just so clear. It's like, okay, okay, kids, yes, oh little child.
Yeah.
Um, but again, like there's one line in this course that every time I hear it and read it, and it's I and it's many places that brings just tears to my eyes, and it's in today's lesson, a two word sentence. I'm home.
Yes, I remember I read that earlier this morning and just like had the same thought.
I'm home.
Yeah.
Quit this silliness. So I wanted to mention Bob has posted in the chat that he has just written an article about quantum entanglement. He
Oh, cool.
Bob
Yeah,
is
nice.
new to our group.
Uh-huh.
He's been with us for maybe a couple months, I guess, and maybe more. I don't know. I don't count time, but he writes really interesting articles and relate to the Course in Miracles.
Oh,
And
cool.
so we're going to start a program, and I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do it on Monday. We might have to wait a week, Bob, to do this because I'm not sure about the schedule. But we're going to pick some of his articles and just read them and discuss them in our group.
Cool.
Bob
Could
himself
could you
has
put
had,
the link in the chat? I did because we have a course nerd group on Tuesday afternoons. That might be a good thing to send around to that group
oh,
and we
sure,
could possibly
absolutely.
discuss. Yeah.
Well, it's the same place. I don't have the time yet. I haven't set up the
Oh,
time,
okay. Oh, okay. No,
but
I meant the article
oh, the
that
article.
Bob.
Bob, can you put the link to the article in the chat?
That'd be great. Yeah.
Because yeah, Bob has lost his voice due to cancer, but he can speak, but just doesn't really speak a lot. But the Kiwi article, yes, sir. I
Yes,
believe
yes,
you
please.
sent it to me through email. So, oh, he's going to get it for us. Good.
Super. Excellent.
All right. Yeah,
Great. Cool. That'll be fun to
really
read.
great.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm going to continue
Okay.
reading.
Yes, please.
I got the right mouse on the right screen here.
Yeah, I think we're in still another
Still
form, right?
another, yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. Still another form in which Helen's anxiety manifested itself was in her great inconsistency of jumping back and forth between her wrong and right-minded selves.
Mhm. No one
Filled with
can relate to that, huh?
no, I never had that happen. No,
Once
no,
again, like we've been saying for 2 years reading this book, it's like, wow, what a great reminder of what we're doing with our mind that Helen
exactly.
reflects. Yeah.
Exactly. And then Helen, it was just recently her birthday. Uh,
Right, right.
and she was astrologically a Cancer, and
Hmm.
Cancer persons are historically whatever uh, 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 governed by the moon.
Right.
And so as the moon
Moon
goes through,
children, as the astrologers sometimes call
yes, and so
them.
or crab, it's either the crab
Right.
or the moon child. But as the moon goes through its phases, people who have that Cancerian attitude go through those same phases. So they may be switching back and making a lot of different uh, uh, conflicting thoughts, whatever. And, I don't even mention astrology because, it's like part of the real world. It's just another indicator.
Hmm.
I looked at my astrology chart and actually realized, oh, this is why. These are the things that I chose to come into that gave me the persona that I present.
Hmm.
So to me, I think knowing your astrology is very helpful in understanding, how it is that, you chose to communicate when you came into the world.
Yeah, yeah.
So you
And I,
decided to
I, I
be.
can I can relate to that totally. And in fact, I probably will use a little bit of astrological symbolism in this next book I'm working on. Um, but the idea behind it is kind of like what I had on this uh, second book. I'm calling the third one the glossary. So it's, even though it's not a physical book, but it's an online book about an online book, which happens to be A Course in Miracles. But but the this one I'm working on. Is basically I, like the geometry code book. I basically use geometric metaphors to show that any geometric symbol can be seen as a way of reinforcing the ego's belief in separation, fragmentation, and duality, or it can be seen through the Holy Spirit's eyes as a mechanism for seeing that the perfect oneness has never been divided, and it can the symbol or the metaphor can be used as a mechanism for getting back to sameness and ultimately to the oneness that we never left by using every specific to restore the mind to the general awareness that nothing happened. Separation is a myth. So we can use that with astrological symbolisms too. Each of the 12 signs of the zodiac can very easily be seen as a dualistic symbol. I mean, I could go through all the 12 signs, quickly enough, but if you just think about, each graphically in terms of the glyphs or the symbol that's used to depict them, as well as the characteristics that are usually ascribed to each of the symbols, they basically have a two-faced or a positive, negative, or there's always an ambivalence or a duality associated with them, and
Exactly.
and yet in the center of that, whether you're talking about the 12 tribes or the 12 disciples, the 12 signs of the zodiac, they're all reflections of things that have become polarizing by the ego, but the Christ mind in the center, or the Holy Spirit or Jesus in the center, then reconciles not only the opposites, but any idea of duality or polarity, and then restores the oneness by means of the sameness and the forgiveness of what appear to be separations and specificities and dualities and
Exactly.
fragmentations. Yeah. So anyway,
Yes. Yeah, yeah. And so that's why you can look at these things and say, oh, well, I recognize that for instance, if you're a Scorpio, Scorpio is, based on the scorpion, which is a creature that lives underground in a little cave, and it has a stinging bite, a stinger, and there's all sorts of things
and our
about.
cats like to play with them, that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
cats like to play with them. They run around in the desert. You open up your package from Toys R Us, and there's little scorpions running around in it.
Really?
That happened to us at
Haven't had
one
that. Haven't had that
point.
happen.
But anyway, it doesn't matter. So we see these things, but also for Scorpio, the other side of it is the eagle,
Hmm.
and so
Right. The serpent or the
Scorpio,
eagle, depending on which
right.
vertical dimension you're looking at.
Exactly, exactly.
Hmm.
So when a person arises in their consciousness to that place where they are above the battleground, etc., then they do rise up to that eagle stature in their development. And you can see that. And I've delved into all the tarot, and the tarot is the same way. My God, if you ever got into that, Bruce, you would be like in talk about
Oh, actually, I've dabbled with it. In fact, I have a classic illustrated tarot deck that I'm probably looking for a home for if somebody wants to buy it from me for a modest fee. This is a fellow named Ed Byrne in Nevada City, California, made this really lavishly illustrated tarot deck using Blake's imagery.
uh-huh.
And it's pretty cool thing. In fact, I'm going to probably scan all the it's the major arcana uh, uh, tarot deck anyway. So
Oh,
anyway,
I'd love to see it.
it's a quick aside. I'll probably post it on Facebook or it's one of those things soon. Yeah,
Yeah, I have.
since I'm saying, taking things that I haven't really looked at a lot, and it's like, I should find a good home for these things
Yeah, I
before.
think, yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness, I'm looking for Bob's email in here, and I have Bob Rosenthal's email.
Yeah, well,
Send him
the,
a message.
the two Bobs that had the good fortune of meeting are now no longer in form, but yeah. So at FAP they referred to Bob Rosenthal as Dr. Bob and Bob Sketch as Bobo.
Bravo.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right. Okay, so let's see. All right. So I'm going to go back to reading. All right. So still another form in which Helen's anxiety manifested itself was in her great inconsistency of jumping back and forth between her wrong and right-minded selves. Bill would comment frequently to me about this disconcerting phenomena, and there was no question he was correct. Although Helen's ego was usually prominently displayed, one would never know from one minute to the next when it would be the voice of fear or of wisdom speaking, the ego or Jesus, and when it was clearly his voice speaking through her, her words reflecting a truth that could not be her words reflecting a truth that could not be denied. Helen could just as quickly, in a matter of a second or two, switch back to her ego. So one minute you could be discussing with her an important question regarding the course or some situation that needed serious attention. And the very next, Helen would be back into her ego state, worrying about a temperature shift, Louis's latest cold, or the like. And yeah, that happens to me all the time. Yeah.
I think we can all relate to that too. Not
Yeah.
only with each other, with the people we live with and work with and experience in just about every capacity. Huh?
Yeah. And there's no uh there's no fighting with it or arguing with it. It just basically is recognize that that's what it is and let it go. Seriously, don't worry about it.
And that's the uncertainty that is the course refers to in at the end of chapter 31, because when it states that we're all uncertain, lonely, and in constant fear. Well, yeah, this is an unstable world. I mean, you know, even the Old Testament God reflects that. It's smiling and loving one moment, and then smiting and smithereening the next.
Smiting and smithereeny. I love it. Okay, so uh as she continually veered to and fro. Okay, as we made our way along the sidewalks of New York, Helen's steps would never hold to a straight line as she continually veered to and fro, sometimes resembling a broken field runner on a football field trying to avoid tacklers. We usually walked at a leisurely pace, and often the freneticism of many other New Yorkers would lead them to try to pass us. But their attempts were frequently frustrated and thwarted by Helen's back and forth weavings. That's so weird. I'll tell you why
Hmm.
in a minute. And so I would take her arm and hold her until the person had successfully gotten through. Told Helen that perhaps my greatest contribution to the world, albeit an unnoticed one, was to the pedestrians of Manhattan, who I continually saved from the dangers of her broken field antics. That's pretty
That's
funny.
that's but I don't remember reading this before, so I
Me neither.
must have zoned out. That's pretty funny. Yeah.
Well, and the reason I'm surprised I don't remember reading this is because I have a problem with my vestibular system. And because of that vestibular problem, I weave back and forth when I walk. I can't walk a straight line. I'm constantly course correcting, which you do normally naturally when your vestibular system is working. But when your
Right.
vestibular system's not working, then it becomes a matter of concentration to be able to walk in a straight line.
So you don't do well in vestibules, is that what I'm hearing?
I do not do well in and do not even try to get me to pass a sobriety test because I can't
So
walk
so
straight.
maybe you just need a gyroscope when you head out the door.
There you go.
Yeah, okay.
Um, but I find that interesting that she may have had a vestibular disorder and not even
Hmm.
know it,
Hmm.
because that comes from having like ear infections and such. I
Hmm.
didn't have an ear infection. I was given a antibiotic that screwed up my vestibular system. But yeah, I weave back and forth. I can't walk a straight line, and I do need someone to hold on to me, or else I have to use a cane or a walker, or else I look like I'm drunk. So there we go.
Okay.
Uh, okay, let's see. So shopping. I
Should I
have
pick up?
already, you
Oh,
want to
go
pick
ahead.
up? Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, sure, sure. I mean, unless you feel like, I either way,
Oh,
doesn't matter.
please go ahead.
Okay. So, section 4 on this, Helen's ambivalence toward Jesus is in the category of shopping. Okay, I've already mentioned Helen's use of shopping to defend against Jesus, and we have seen Jesus alluding to it during the early weeks of the dictation. It was a masterful defense, for it almost totally preoccupied Helen, succeeding in its purpose of keeping Jesus safely away from Helen's attention. In the years before my coming on the scene, jewelry was Helen's major shopping focus, with each weekend seeing another pair of earrings being added to her collection. Shoes also played a major part of this defensive plan, and this carried over into the years of our shopping together. Often we would walk down Fifth Avenue, starting at Lord and Taylor's on 38th Street, covering all the shoe stores until we hit 34th Street, and then the fun started. There seemed almost to be one shoe store after another in the 2 blocks that spanned Fifth and Seventh Avenues. Often in the past, Helen would buy shoes that did not fit, thereby necessitating yet another trip to exchange them, and the process would begin all over again. This particular ploy had largely ceased during the years we shopped together, although it did happen occasionally. Now I'm giggling because I'm thinking, well, I'm an accomplice and perhaps an enabler to my wife's habit of shopping for houses and then having to exchange them. So we're in the throes of that process
Oh
right
my gosh.
now. Yeah, just hey, why mess with shoes when you could go with bigger ticket items, right?
Yeah, that's just that's hilarious.
Okay. It was very instructive for me to observe Helen's experience of how gently Jesus dealt with her defense. She never once felt his censure or disapproval, and that's something I'm learning as well. And far more often than not, she experienced that Jesus was actively helping her to find what she was looking for. Of course, she did not always ask him, for if she had, the amount of time spent on these shopping expeditions would have been greatly diminished, but so too would have their defensive value of distracting her from his peace and love. Nonetheless, I know it meant a great deal to her that she was experienced Jesus accompanying her as she shopped. It was a wonderful example of his most important teaching in the course, already quoted above. And this is page 206 in the version of the text that Ken had when he wrote this, which is, I'm looking now to the screen, which you've got chapter 12 in the text, section 3, paragraph 4, the first sentence. Recognize what does not matter, and if your brothers ask you for something, quote, outrageous, unquote, do it because it does not matter. I actually have thought of this quote several times in the process of this current move that I'm involved in.
I'll bet.
So this is actually
Just
very
doesn't
timely for
matter.
me.
It
It
just
just
doesn't.
doesn't matter. Thank you, Bill Murray and Ken and Jesus.
Um,
Yep. Okay. And then some 100 pages later, I have said that if a brother asks a foolish thing of you, to do it, but be certain that this does not mean to do a foolish thing that would hurt either him or you, for what would hurt one will hurt the other. Okay. And I'm working on that one too. Okay. One afternoon, as Helen and I were leaving the medical center, I asked her which stores she wanted to go to. Lord and Taylor and B. Altman were among her favorites, in parentheses, but she told me that Jesus had said she would not go shopping anymore. Obviously, this did not mean shopping for necessities, as it would now prove to be harmful to her. Helen accepted this without a trace of resistance. I then suggested to her that with the rest of the afternoon still ahead of us, perhaps she might want to visit our friends, the Mary Knoll sisters on the Lower East Side. Helen readily agreed, and so we went. Visiting the sisters at this time was another dear friend of ours, Doris Yokelson. While there, Doris spontaneously gave Helen a set of gold bracelets from India that Helen had previously admired. These bracelets had great personal value and spiritual meaning to Doris, but she now presented them to Helen as a gift. Incidentally, I knew that Helen always intended that they be returned, and so after her death I gave them back to Doris. The synchronicity of this gift with Helen's ready acceptance of Jesus' request not to shop anymore did not escape Helen or me. She therefore accepted the gift with the same love with which she was offered, with which it was offered, and we and when we prayed together afterwards, she thanked Jesus in her heart as well. Wow. Great stuff. Very truly helpful.
exactly. And man, the idea that she didn't have to go shopping for jewelry because she was being given these two gold bracelets. I would love
Hmm.
to have seen them,
Yeah,
but
what a symbol, huh? Yeah.
I love it.
I missed what you just said, Lynn.
Oh, I said I'd love to have seen those bracelets,
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah.
but
Yeah, I was just thinking, it's like, well, the idea that everything that we do out of resistance to the truth is a delaying tactic, and yet we can use the noticing our resistance as a mechanism for seeing that, I could actually be doing what I'm doing anyway, but doing it with the Holy Spirit. So that's another thing I'm reminding myself, not just during this, you know, likely move from Arizona back to Oregon, but also just in anything that do throughout the day. If I can remember what's the purpose of anything I'm doing, is it to divide and conquer and separate and polarize and make differences real, or is it just is the purpose really designed to heal my mind of the belief in separation by reminding myself that everyone has the same three parts of the mind, the same ego, Holy Spirit, and decision maker, and that we all are fighting the same hard battle, and we can all afford to be infinitely patient, tolerant, and gentle, and yet vigilant, with each other and with ourselves. So anyway, yeah, it looks like a good stopping point. So thank
yeah,
you, Lynn, as always, for another wonderful hour, and look forward to picking up where we left off next week.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Bruce Rawls, and how I appreciate your wisdom and your candor, and just being with you as
Oh,
always.
likewise, likewise. Yeah, I mean, we're all in this together, aren't we? I mean, that's the whole thing, isn't it?
It
I mean, if
is,
we weren't,
and
the course wouldn't make any sense.